Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to 4-Tier Fever. Well, what a week. From the joys of beating Manchester United in our backyard, you could say we caught a big fish. The pun was definitely intended there. To come in right back down to earth with aplomb, losing at home to Bristol Rovers. It's certainly been an interesting but a very cool week to be a Grimsby Town fan, but we're not here to talk about that. Or maybe we will. We might talk about that a little bit later because I make the rules around here and I don't really care what anyone thinks. I sounded very like an idiot. I sounded very much like an idiot there. But I should probably apologise in advance for my throat as well. I've been coughing up to death and I feel like it's been getting worse since Wednesday night. So there might be a few times if you're watching this as a video, I'll probably be muting and just have to look away to cough. I don't know why I'm saying this. You don't want to wear this. What you do want to wear is Luke and Jack, who are on this one. Hello, lads.
Hello. I'm looking forward to
Good.
this one. Some of us don't hide behind poor results, and some of us don't bottle 12 point advantages in the league either. But no, this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, our first loss in the league. It's a new experience this season so far, but it was it's one to talk about at least. Certainly one to talk about.
Absolutely, it's been a. Let's just come and cry from the weekend. Not so much the week where it was more crying happy tears, but look, let's talk about the games that's happened first. But of course, if you are new around here, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, download the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you to Sky Bet for sponsoring this podcast as always. Right, okay, my voice is actually gone. Like it's ridiculous, actually. I'm sort of struggling as well. Let's start from the games this week. Of course, we're doing it as well. 6 games we picked out from the weekend just gone. Let's start with the big winners of the day of yesterday. Swindon Town. They went to Crewe Alexandra and picked up a very impressive 3-0 victory. Of course, Crewe Alexandra lost to Gillingham last time out. Probably deserved more from the game. But it is what it is. As for Swindon, coming off the back of a late 2-1 victory against struggling Shrewsbury, in which they've had to really find something to make sure they picked up the 3 points in the end as they did. Goals in the first half, an absolute rampant first half from Gavin Kilkenny, Paul Glatzel and Aaron Drinan put the Robins 3-0 in front, and that's how it finished. Just a very terrific afternoon for Swindon. I think there's a lot to unpack with all 3 of those goals. I think Kilkenny's looked more like a cross more than anything. It's just found its way into the back of the net. As for Paul Glatzel's, bit of a mess from the back. From a Crewe perspective, it was a terrible pass to the goalkeeper, and God knows what the goalkeeper was doing. And you still got to have that instinct as a striker for Paul Glatzel to put away. And that Aaron Drinan goal, I think it's certainly. I think if any of the 1970 Brazil squad were watching that, they'd have even applauded that. It's not the first time they've done it either. I was very complimentary of their first goal that they scored against Shrewsbury last week. But what a terrific win that is for Swindon Town, really showing their ruthless spark, as we all sort of knew they had.
Ruthless was the exact word I was going to use. Going forward, so good. And I mean, in the opening minutes, it looked like Crewe were kind of going to be at least kind of involved in the game. They kind of had a couple of chances here or there, but I think as the game went on, Swindon just kept improving and improving and improving. And eventually not even eventually, they did it quite quickly. It was practically over by half time. And I think it was the second goal that did it. It was that, as you say, the James Conley pass back wasn't really good enough. But even so, I think Tom Booth had plenty of time to get that clear. Taking the extra touch was a mistake. I think that's probably inexperience showing, because I know it's still his first full season for them. But yeah, I think after that they kind of just lost their heads a little bit, which is where I'm concerned, because the teams that you'd expect to do well in the long term are the ones that will fight back in that sort of game, and they really didn't, to be honest. It was Swindon all the way through. But you have to give them credit for that. It's a really strong performance, and that the positive sides of the game were in full effect there. You attack relentlessly, and Crewe just didn't do enough to test their defence.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry,
go
on.
No. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it was 1:15 in the afternoon. I sort of hadn't got my football brain switched on yet, and suddenly Swindon had killed that game off at 3-0 on a Saturday. I mean, it is ridiculous, but as you both said, it's ruthless play. I mean, I love my stats, but in the second half, Swindon still dominated the ball, dominated the shots, pretty much dominated all aspects of the game. At 3-0 up, the game's over and done with. So to keep that level of intensity up, it is something to be applauded. But I mean, Crewe, it's worrying at the moment to see their first loss. I think after 2 big home wins, you'd hope they'd continue that. But now back-to-back losses, they need to gather themselves back and try and put it right next weekend or during the week on Tuesday.
Yeah, because I read something, I think it was Lee Bell said that Swindon were just better than them. And it certainly seemed the case.
Yeah. I think it's one of those days you get with every club. We all know it, where you just don't turn up. It's just one of those days where you just absolutely don't turn up. Nothing comes off. Nothing works. It's just you've got to close your eyes and forget very quickly. And I think that's just what Crewe have to do. Yes, Swindon played well, but I think it was one of those games for Crewe where they could have done a lot better. And they weren't on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much seemed like a poor day at the office in terms of a Crewe perspective. But they've seen that a couple of times, I think. But it's about how they respond now. I think, like I said, I thought they were unfortunate not to get something out of Gillingham last week, but they were somewhat ran all over a little bit at times by Swindon. But Swindon were terrific. You've got to give them credit where it's due. You've got to give Holloway credit where it's due. And obviously, we should probably point out as well, I mentioned in the preview pod on Tuesday when we recorded it, there was obviously needing a striker because of the injury to Harry Smith for the rest of the season. And even then, this was before it was somewhat mentioned or anything like that. I noticed that Ollie Palmer was free to leave Wrexham, and instantly I thought to myself, I think this is the perfect Smith replacement for Swindon Town. And by lo and behold, it actually happened. How big of an impact can he make? I feel like he likes his target men. Actually, does Holloway. I think I remember when he was with us, he always rated James Hansen when he was with us. I mean, 6'5". I think I could be doing him a service probably with that, but he was a tall fella who could head the ball, could bring others into play when he did play, albeit it was very rare, especially in his second and last season. He was just never fit. But you could tell that he really wanted to build a squad with that. He just seems like to have it with them, but with someone of Ollie Palmer's experience, especially what he's experienced at Wrexham, I think they've hit the jackpot, personally. I think this is a pretty good siding for them.
Yeah, annoyingly it is. I'm not particularly a fan of him for obvious reasons, but
Oh, you and me both, mate.
But no, it's a decent signing, and he is going to be that focal point in the absence of Harry Smith. Just that's someone that they can get the ball up to any way they can. It's just an easy way to get the ball up the pitch quickly and efficiently. And as we say, they like being ruthless with their attacks, so having that focal point is crucial. Obviously, not too sure how much he'll contribute in terms of goals themselves, but in terms of just getting up the pitch and getting up the right end, I think he'll be a very good signing. And I mean, to be fair, they scored 3 before he was even on the pitch, so goals maybe not a problem.
Yeah, I was gonna. That's the exact point I was gonna make. I mean, what is that? Their second time they scored 3 goals this season, by the look of it. But that's the time when they don't have that target man. I agree with you. I think that's something that Holloway likes, and just Swindon as a football club seem to like, is that big, strong target man up front. But then you've got the likes of Jordan and Glatzel who aren't that really, and especially Glatzel. I remember he's that sort of smaller attacker who's very, very agile and quick and can run between players. And I mean, it's worked for them in that game. So it'd be interesting to see, does Ollie Palmer come straight into the team, or do they try and find another way to work around the opposition? But certainly a good sign. And whether he's still got it, who knows? Obviously, he's not played regularly at the moment. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
I think I read something that was Glatzel's first goal in like 20 games. He's obviously been a player that's been, starving for a chance, really, and starving just to try and get that try to get that goal to get him off the mark. That might do him the world of good. All right, it might have come a little bit fortuitous for him, in a sense. He's still got to do his bit with that, but he did it pretty well. But maybe that could really kick him on. It'll certainly give Holloway some food for thought, but it'll certainly give Lee Bella a little bit of food for thought after yesterday, that's for sure. But take nothing away from Swindon, their excellent, deserve 3 points in the end. And yeah, as I think we've already mentioned, the game was done at half time, really. It didn't look like the result was really ever in doubt when you saw that half time score. So a good win for Swindon. Let's move on. It's another good win for Gillingham. They've gone top of the league. They're still unbeaten. What's it, 18 games now, is it? Something like that. They look all right, don't they? They look like a really well-oiled machine. Going away to Oldham Athletic, they're looking for their first win themselves. I think they've probably been unfortunate in some of the games that they have played. I think they have played well in quite a number of those games. A couple at home in particular. But it's Gills that walk away with 3 points. Sam Vokes to get an early goal of the game with like 10 minutes left or something like that. It was a pretty late goal. Look, I think we were watching the highlights and we was having a discussion early on that if only Oldham can finish. I mean, I feel sort of the makers of their own downfall at times a little bit. I mean, Kane Drummond's having his own highlight reel of misses, really, at the minute. If you've seen that one in the second half, but yeah, look, Gills win away from home again. They find a way. They keep a clean sheet. They bag the 3 points. They're going back down to Kent and the top of the league, and they're having a sort of laugh while doing it at the minute. They find a way, and that's what good teams do.
Yeah, exactly that. They find a way, and I don't think they were really at all a better team in that game. It was like a proper smash and grab, really. I mean, from the chances Oldham had, you've mentioned the Drummond one there. I think Quigley could have had 2 or 3 potentially from the chances he had as well. I think Oldham were on top for a lot of it. It's just the finishing wasn't quite there, but I think that's that unbeaten run for Gillingham. It almost feels like some sort of force field around them at this point. Like, it doesn't matter what happens in the game. Come the end of it, they're not losing, and they'll have scored at least one in the process. I think it's just the mental side of it. Whatever happens, they are going to be involved in the game, and they're going to get at least something from it, and it's working for them. Obviously, that this run isn't going to go on forever. It's gone on for a very, very long time at this point. 18 games is insanely good. What will be interesting is when they eventually lose that, how they bounce back to that. But at least based on the way they've been going on this unbeaten run, like I said, they haven't necessarily always been the better team in these games. That would give me hope that even if they were to lose a game, they would have the mentality to bounce back on the in the rare event of them actually losing one.
Yeah, I think Gillingham as a side are an interesting one. I think I'm going to play slight devil's advocate here, and that I had a look through their fixtures, and they've only scored more than one goal in a game in one of their fixtures. Which, I mean, a 4-1 win over Chesterfield is not something to go lightly by.
Other than that, it's very on brand.
Yeah, and I think every other game it's a 1-0 or a 1-1 or anything like that, really. Which makes me slightly worried that they need to start putting more goals in the back of the net just to keep that consistency, because eventually you will concede. If you concede one as a Gillingham team, are you confident that you'll score a second? I'd be interested to see what Gillingham fans think about that. I'm just going off, the data and sort of looking at it from a neutral perspective. I'm not sure whether I would be, but they've got strikers coming back. Obviously, Sam Vokes on the score sheet. He wasn't available at the start of the season. Said Palmer Holden will be back. I don't think he is back yet. I hope I'm not wrong with that. But I've not seen him so far. So I think he's maybe a week or so off. So when he comes back, it's another striker and again, another good addition to their attacking line that potentially they need. I know that was one of the issues last season. It's been corrected by additions, but like I say, they've not been available until now. Sam Vokes already off on the score sheet. So that's a good sign. And again, it's a big physical team, and that's sort of what Gareth Ainsworth works with. That's what he knows, and he does well. And we're seeing that so far in the league.
Of course, high praises for Gillingham, as always. As for Oldham, where do they go from here? Because, I mean, it's like I said, I don't feel like they've been bad in their games. They probably have deserved more from those games. Certainly not getting the rub of the green as such. Obviously, just over 24 hours until the end of the transfer window. I think they probably could do with a little bit more. I think they've clearly got an issue with scoring goals, perhaps, as well. And you see some of the chances. I do look at the players that they've got up front. I mean, Joe Quigley started that game. He was signed from Forest Green. They've also got the likes of Mike Fondert. Keane Harrett's still there, Joe Gar. I'm really not sold on their striking options at all. I think you can really say that, you know, with some of the other players in that. I mean, I mentioned Kane Drummond. I've been singling him out, but yeah, he's certainly been a couple of eyes up front for him in terms of he could have really added 2 or 3 goals to his tally with some of those chances. And you hear Mickey Mellon saying yesterday, I'm not sure if it's mind games or anything like that, or, you know, he's keeping his cards close to his chest, but he was on about yesterday. I think he mentioned a couple of days before the game that they had something lined up, and come yesterday, he's saying that's not happening, and somewhat their business was done. That's what it sounded like. I'm not sure with that, to be honest, because I'm looking at the squad. I mean, it's an all right squad. Don't get me wrong. It's not terrible. There's bits of good quality in there, but I also look at it and I'm thinking, right, okay, where are these? It's almost a sense of maybe with quite a bit of it. Where are the goals coming from? Because I'm struggling to see it at the minute. I mean, it's an Oldham squad. I know there's a lot of players in there that Mickey Mellon has trusted and has worked with in the past, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just feel like we've got to a point. 5 years ago, that's a very good squad. 5 years ago, that probably gets you promoted, as Jack will probably know full well, really.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I don't know. There's bits of Oldham I'm really not sold on. Truth be told, I'm probably going to get some stick from Oldham fans, but that's just how I see it. I'm more than happy to be proved wrong, but I'm just going off how I see it, mainly from the outside, and that's just how it is, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, I said it when we played them opening game of the season. It felt like, you know, bog standard League Two team. I just don't see the goals, and to be fair, the results have kind of supported that. You know, I think so far, obviously 0 against us, 1-1, 0, 1-1, 0. So they're due a goal next week, but yeah, you can't see them scoring more than 1. Which is exactly what we were just saying about Gillingham, but I think it's a bit more extreme in Oldham's case because getting that 1 is proving to be a bit more difficult. And it's not like they're not having the chances. They have well, they didn't against us, but they against some of these other teams, they've had the chances to put games to bed, and they just haven't. So the quality isn't there in the final third, and you know it's a tricky one. There's obviously, as you mentioned, only 1 or 2 days left of the window. You know, do you stick or twist? They've obviously brought in a couple already, but is there anyone they can get to, you know, make that a quick fix? Or are they going to have to try and build confidence into the players they've already got? Because for whatever reason, they're not hitting the target from really, really easy chances. And I think the next few games will be quite telling, actually. You know, they've got Cambridge next. Bromley will be a tricky one, but then after that, they've got Cheltenham and Barnet. And for me, that's 2 opportunities right there to really go and score a couple. If they don't, then that's where I start to be a bit more concerned.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the stats, they've had 11 shots in that game. I think 8 of them were in the box. And so obviously you've saying the obvious, but you've got a higher chance of scoring if you're shooting from inside the box. And obviously they have had big misses in that game, which is always a worry. I think Mike Fondop has to play whenever possible, so I think that's one of their routes to score, and obviously he didn't at the weekend. But I'm in agreement. Obviously, Mickey Mellon notorious for building those older sides. Potentially on a finer budget, he can sort of build a competitive side. So it might not be as flashy as some other teams like an MK Dons in this division, but they will find the quality in certain ways, and I think he's good at nitpicking how to get the best out of the group that he has. Do I think he's found it yet? Absolutely not. I think there's certain questions around how he wants to play and how he can use the players he's got to play the way he wants to play. Obviously, I remember at the start of the season he was talking about how Mike Fondop needs to be a target man and how they're going to do that. And then obviously they brought in Joe Quigley, who could fill that sort of position really. But it's a mix between him, obviously with his experience, and then also the players he's got and whether that's a match. Obviously, Oldham fans weren't happy with him at the start, it's about 3/4 through the last season, and would considering wanting him out of the club. When does that start to tick for Mickey Mellon? I'm not sure. Obviously, without a win in 6 games, you're in a new league. You've got to develop and understand the league and slowly build into it. I know, but I'd be interested to see when Oldham fans start to question it, because obviously they were last season and they ended up getting promoted. But we'll wait and see on that one.
I'm just curious to know. Actually, I'm just looking through their sort of form just in general since the turn of the year. Obviously, they had that very good playoff campaign, but you look at their form in the National League since the turn of the year, and it really wasn't that great.
No.
It just really wasn't. Like I said, take nothing away from the promotion or anything like that. They were terrific, and they were the best team in the playoffs, and they deserved to go up. And the way they did it was incredible. But it all sort of just feels like it. I just feel like it's maybe slightly weaker at points. Maybe the squad. I think that's probably one thing I take away from that. And I think the big thing you probably take away from this current season as well, 6 games played, they've drawn 4 of them. Like I said, I think they've been quite unlucky to not get a few more points, especially the Colchester game. They should have won that. I mean, they're not like they're losing a great deal, but I think the longer this win goes on, or the longer that they go without a win, I think there's certainly more pressure. I think you're always going to get that. But I don't know. I think there is questions I think you probably do need to ask about Oldham at the minute. Not necessarily on the manager. I think just in general, just with the whole thing. It's worth noting as well. I'm just looking at this game. Joe Quigley was booked in the first minute. That is incredible. Right, let's move on to the next game. Let's go to Chesterfield. They drew 2-2 with Crawley Town. A little bit of a shock, actually. As of half-time, Crawley Town were 2-0 up away from home at Chesterfield. Harry McCurdy getting both goals. The second one was a penalty, which was, I'll be honest, slightly controversial. I'll be honest, it looked a bit soft. But Chesterfield did well to get back into the game. I mean, 2 goals in the space of 2 minutes through Dylan Duffy and Armando Dobra. But I think if you're actually Crawley, you're frustrated. It was one of the lads that sort of just ran straight through, clean through, right at the end and sort of made a right hash of it. Where actually, I mean, it's that sort of come to kill him at the end, sort of to speak. I think genuinely speaking, I know we spoke to Sam in the pod the other day. Of course, on the balance of it, away from home, a draw against Chesterfield is probably a decent result. I mean, it's not. In fact, no, there's no probably about it. It is a decent result against one of the best teams in the division. It's the fact that they probably should have won it right near the end, and they'll be kicking themselves for that, and especially kicking themselves when you're 2-0 up away from home. Yes, all right, Chesterfield have quality, we know that, but to do it in that manner, I think you're certainly disappointed, and that was certainly the impression I got from listening to Scott Lindsay yesterday.
I mean, for me, this was the very definition of a game of 2 halves. Crawley came out of the blocks very, very quickly. Scored a bit of a rare direct goal for the opener, actually. McCurdy straight through on goal. Great movement and good finish. And then obviously doubled up with the penalty as well. To be honest, I think there was just one moment that woke Chesterfield up, and it was towards the beginning of the second half, where McCurdy technically scored a hat trick, but there was like a lovely little flick thing, but he was offside, so it didn't count. And I think that kind of woke Chesterfield up a little bit. And then they started attacking, and obviously got back into the game with two decent strikes. As you say, Dixon then obviously went through right at the end, so it could have been the winner. He really should have done more with that. He's a young lad on loan from Charlton, isn't he? I think that's possibly his first senior loan, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think someone more experienced probably puts that away. But regardless, it's a good result, a decent performance against a very strong side, and I think there's a lot of positives they can take from that. It's just that frustration that it could have been more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Crawley's a side that really, from a neutral point of view, excited me when we played them. I think they had a lot of energy and a lot of sort of creativity about them. Obviously, they didn't really show it in the game against Chesterfield. 3 shots, 2 in the first half, 1 in the second half, and they got 2 goals. Very clinical from them, obviously. But yeah, it's waiting for that creativity to turn into goals and to turn into points, obviously. But obviously, we'll wait and see what Scott Lindsay does. Chesterfield again, bad day at the office. Dominated, but just couldn't turn it into goals. But I think we all know Chesterfield's strengths. You can't put it down to any sort of performances. I think they're just, again, one of those days, but they find a way to win or find a way to get points at least, to get a draw and get home and go again. And I think in teams that are going to be right at the top of the table, you've got to do that. You've got to keep pushing and pushing, and eventually you might get a point or 3. Obviously, they didn't get all 3, but still a solid point.
It's great to know that, well, first of all, Crawley excited you when they played them. They really didn't when we did at all. If anything, it was the total opposite. Yeah, look, I think Chesterfield, another example is, 2-0 down. You've done quite well to get back into that game. Probably frustrated that they didn't go on and win that. But again, probably the same with Crawley. I think, like I said, I was listening to Scott Lindsay's interview, and there was quite a few interesting points that I took from that. Obviously, the lad that missed, apparently he was in tears afterwards. After that, and he'll be gutted with that. But I think it's not one where it's his first loan. Probably one where you need to put a shoulder around him. I think it's that he'll learn from that. But also, what I took from Scott Lindsay's interview, first of all, it's a very cool drinking game if you want it. Have a shot every time he mentions the term not professional enough, because he must have said it about 12 times. But other than that, I think he's also mentioned about the need for experience. And actually, looking at their squad, I know they brought in Scott Malone. I think he was at Crawley before, wasn't he? I'm sure he was. But just in general, I think he sort of gone on the fact that maybe more experienced heads. I know we've mentioned it with the lad that missed it at the end. Maybe a more experienced head might have scored that, and Crawley would have gone on to pick up a very impressive win. But just in general, I think they're certainly missing a little bit. There's some good players there. It's been around the blocks a little bit, but in terms of actual leaders, I'm actually struggling to see many in this Crawley side. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I'd say that's a valid point, and I think I hate to bring it up again, but it also kind of comes back to the whole rotating your whole squad every summer, and you don't have players that have been there for a few years and kind of know how things go at that club, and I think that can make it difficult. But I mean, they definitely have something about them. There is something there. I mean, I know they've had 4 defeats, but their 2 draws have been against us at Dons and Chesterfield. Like they've got a point off the 2 title favourites. But so there's clearly something there. It's just going to take, as you say, that bit more experience to get them across and actually finish these games off. They obviously don't have long to get anyone in because the window's closing very, very soon. But you'd hope they get one or two more in at least. Just that calm head. Just even to help in the dressing room, even if it's not necessarily someone that plays a whole lot, just someone that's going to help lead that group.
I agree, but I'm also excited. I think what they showed in the first half of that Tranmere game was a bit of chaotic, excited creativity. I mean, there's a little Maradona from Watson and then played through McCurdy, and I think that was the chance where McCurdy then went through, and it was a lucky save off the line from Patrick Brough, one of our defenders. And there was a couple of times where McCurdy went through one-on-one against Luke McGee, and he still saved it. And so, I mean, how he didn't get a hat-trick in that game is thanks to our defenders, really, or a keeper.
And Amari Patrick turned up.
Exactly, yeah. That's it. I think that's the difference between the two sides. You said it perfectly. Harry McCurdy.
Oh no, that's not. No, don't remind me of him. No.
Close enough. Harry McCurdy didn't score on the day, and Amari Patrick did, and that was the difference between the two sides when we played them. And McCurdy took his chances at the weekend, and obviously they drawn 2-2. Player you're talking about, Keane Dixon, is one as well that I just want to mention because I picked him up in January, and I think he's an incredible player at youth level. And he's got that pace and creativity that I think will be really, really exciting to see. Surprised he's got his first loan move so soon, but I mean, as a League Two player, I'm sure he'll show what he's about. Again, in the Tranmere game in the first half, he tried a bicycle kick, I'm pretty sure. So shows confidence and shows he's got the willingness to try those things. But yeah, Crawley are just looking out for that striker, aren't they? That goal scorer. Whether one of those two can be it, we'll wait and see. Obviously, McCurdy's off the mark now.
Yeah, and it's also great for a personal standpoint of Harry McCurdy as well. He's now starting to hit the ground running a little bit. Right, okay, let's move on. My voice is slowly going, so I'll be short and brief with this one. From Chesterfield to Milton Keynes, MK Dons have lost 1-0 at home to Walsall.
Really?
Milton Keynes Dons have lost a football match, and with the money that they spent, it's truly a crime, really. The early goal of the game coming from Charlie Lakin. Luke, I'll hand this one over to you.
You weren't seriously expecting us to be invincibles, were you?
Yeah, yeah.
Now.
Especially with the signing of Kane Wilson that you've done. So let me read my notes. Championship side Derby County, which you probably spent a bob on again.
I thought you weren't going to mention it.
Well, I've mentioned it now, so you can have it.
Oh yeah, no. I think for us this was just one of those games. Walsall kind of came out of the blocks pretty fast. Didn't create all that much. They had a couple of decent chances again through Lakin. McGillivray made one very, very good save. But aside from that, they didn't create too much. But then I think we kind of grew into the game. And second half, even before they scored, I think we were all over them at that point. I think maybe a minute before they scored their goal, Patterson misses an absolute sitter. I don't know how he managed to miss the target. The keeper was flat-footed. All he had to do was put it on target, and it's a goal. But then they obviously catch us on the breakaway, and that's where Walsall are quite good in that transition. And that whenever they looked threatening, it was because they were counter-attacking at speed with about 5 or 6 players coming forward. I know in the first half it was Vincent Harper that looked like a real threat. Didn't help that we had Luke Offord playing right back. He definitely does not have the pace to deal with Harper, but no, I mean, it was a frustrating goal to concede because I think we had a couple of midfielders that just didn't track back as quickly as they should have done, because that's what you have to do against Walsall. You've got to, follow their numbers and make sure you don't end up in a situation where you've got essentially 3 defenders against 5 or 6 attackers. But I think even after that, from the amount of chances we had, we probably should have scored at least one. There's at least 4 chances I look at there and go, you know what, we should score that. Which in a way is kind of a promising thing. Because yes, the quality wasn't there on the day. That can happen. These players wouldn't be in League Two if that didn't happen. But ultimately, that's what 13 shots in the box. Most of the time, if you have 13 shots in the box, you're probably going to score. So performance-wise, I honestly have no faults with it. Yes, we could have been more relentless in the first half, but we didn't lose it in the first half. So I'm not that concerned. I think Walsall were all right. I don't think they were that good, to be honest. I think Flint looked good. I was impressed with Harper. Their keeper's made 5 saves, so credit to him for that. But like I say, it's just one of those days. We'll go again. We've got a couple of harder games coming up, so we'll see how we bounce back.
I love how you mentioned harder games. Yeah, one thing I've mentioned in terms of what you've just said is obviously I don't think those MK Dons players should be in this division anyway. I think that they're too good, so potentially there's that aspect of that they need to do better, but it is what it is. I'm sure they'll get there. Obviously, I think you're very calm and composed in what you say in terms of MK Dons and in terms of the way that they you've just got to wait, and I think it's a solid way of looking at it. Obviously, we as neutrals look at it in terms of you have got a super team, but there's certain other aspects that come into play, and I think it's a good way of looking at it because it naturally will take time. When you bring in so many new players in and so many faces, and again potentially bringing players in that have an idea that they should be playing higher than they are, it is one way of looking at it. Potentially can cause frustration in games like that, but you kept going, and eventually it didn't quite work, but it shows the difference in shots. Second half came out and absolutely stormed and tried to score, but obviously didn't quite manage it. But we'll wait and see. I think it's at that time in the season where you've just got to wait and see what happens with a team like MK Dons. Do they keep composed now? Who knows? Can they deal with the loss? We'll wait and see. And hopefully, obviously, for your sake, they bounce back. In terms of Walsall, again, impressive, completely different to what I thought was going to be going with Walsall. I thought there'd be a huge hangover from, obviously, the biggest battle of League Two history. But they've started really well, and I've been really impressed with them. Again, obviously, losing the striker is another issue. A striker that we all thought was going to replace Nathan Lowe. And they've done it comfortably again. 6 goals so far in the league campaign is a slight worry in 6 games. That needs to improve. They need to get those goals, but does it matter if you're winning? Probably not. It's just a thing for consistency. As I said, with the likes of Gillingham, you need more than 1 goal a game. So potentially there's that. If another team goes 1-0 up against you, can you come back and score 2 goals? I'd like to see what Walsall fans think about that, and potentially they think they can, and fair enough. I'm excited to see how Walsall go.
Yeah, I think a few things to take away from that. First of all, I'm really intrigued to see how MK Dons respond. I mean, as Lucas probably more alluded to, the performance was there, and I think any other day they'd have certainly taken something from that. It's been just one of those days at the office where it just wasn't not going in. It just wasn't going to happen. It happens in football. It is what it is. And obviously after defeat as well, we'll have to see how the players react. Hopefully they react to the negative light, because Milton Keynes Dons' next game is at home to Grimsby Town next week. So if I'm not on the podcast next Sunday, you probably know why. But I think with Walsall, I know you've mentioned their lack of goal scoring. I think it was something I did allude to the other week. I think they could probably do with bringing in another striker. To be honest, I think there's been a lot of talk about their striker positions at the minute already this season. I know they've got they've got Presley, they've still got Jamil Matz there. Who else? They're signed someone online from Charlton. Yeah, him online from Charlton, of course, because they had Johnny Stuttle before, didn't they? But he looks like he's going to be missing the majority of the season. He's gone back to Bournemouth after picking up an injury against us Grimsby. I think they probably do need one more to fill the void, because I'm just looking at their striker options. Am I missing anyone? Let me just have a quick look. You've got Carter, you've got Matt, you've got Aaron Presley, I mean, Josh Gordon's still there, and I guess Albert Adoma can do a job there, but he's not a proper striker.
For about 20 minutes of games, they don't use him. I
wouldn't include him as striker.
Yeah, I'm certainly under the impression they need one more, and I think they'll get that actually with just over 24 hours of the deadline to go. I think they need to really, because I think that's sort of the difference of them, being a top end League Two side and one that does struggle a little bit in terms of the goal score. Like I said, I think I'm looking at it as a Grimsby perspective. Walsall were the best side we've played so far, and it's not even close, really. But even then, I still probably say we was the better team in that one. But I really liked how Walsall played, the way they used their wing backs with Connor Barrett and I can't remember who they played at left wing back. It was Hancock, I think, before he went off injured. Again, that looks like a bad one. I'm not sure if it was or not. It's just how they attack with numbers on the counter attack. They push up numbers and they're lightning quick at doing it, and they're very good at doing it. They're very intelligent, and you can see why they'll win games this season by doing that, because there'll be times in which you just can't stop it. You just can't, because they do it with such ferociousness. It's quite hard to sort of not get carried away. But I don't have much of a concern with them. Like I said, they've just gone to MK Dons, arguably the favourites, and have picked up a 1-0 win. They'll be buzzing with that. It's a brilliant result for them. And of course, 4 wins out of their first 6 games is a very good return as well. They're up to 6. They've got above MK with that result. But again, we're talking early days, so there's really so much you can really look at the table from. But yeah, obviously, I think 1 or 2 additions on deadline day for Walsall. I think they'll be fine, and I've seen it enough to suggest that they'll probably be up there again already. Not necessarily top 3, but more certainly a playoff push. I can certainly see that from them. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's more about the response from MK Dons. I'm keen on now.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair point. It'll be an interesting one with us, because I kind of came into this little run of fixtures kind of thinking, okay, we've got Walsall, we've got Grimsby, we've got Chesterfield. If we can come away with a couple of decent results there, then that's a good sign. Obviously failed the first hurdle, but then again, for me, performance was there, and it is all just about that reaction. But then still, I think there's still a lot of things to be positive about there. Like Crowley's had his first minute since January, so he's finally starting to integrate back into the side. As you mentioned, Kane Wilson now comes into the side, so we can play with 2 fullbacks again rather than playing centre backs at fullback. There's all these little things, and you can't imagine Patterson would have a second bad day at the office in a row. At least I'd hope not, given someone of his experience and quality. But no, I'm not too worried about us. I think it will be a tricky game, because I feel like naturally we tend to struggle against Grimsby, but we'll see. From a Walsall perspective, though, as you say, I think it comes down to the goals. They don't really have that focal point as such. That striker that I go, right, he's going to go and score 20 this season. They definitely don't have that. Most of their attacking threat was Lakin, and that's a central midfielder that isn't going to play like that every single game. It's a case of the tactics are very good, the system's good, but they don't necessarily have the star sort of player up front to make it like reliable. Well, reliable is not the right word, but
consistently scoring.
Yeah, to be able to sustain that sort of going forward. But then they also have the positive of Aidan Flint, who is obviously going to score goals from set pieces. It's just we were quite fortunate that we've got someone like Jack Sanders that can kind of neutralise him a little bit. But no, there are positives to take from it. I just think they're 1 or 2 big names away from being a top side, as it were. For me, that was the only difference. There were a few very good players there, but aside from that, I didn't see too much different from when we were playing Oldham, for example. But they do have a lot there, and the tactics are very, very good.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a close league this season. I think there's no doubt about that. I think there's so many teams there or thereabout. I said in another podcast, there's so many teams that have picked up a statement signing during this window, but there's also so many teams that are missing that one player that just to drag them up the league. So it'll be interesting to see how Walsall do with that. I'm in agreement that they need a striker. Again, I presume it'll be a big target man. Nathan Lowe was, Jamil Matters, Presley Carney both are. I presume that's what Matt Souther wants. Whether they get one, I know there is a few available. I've got a few names in my head, but I'll wait and see what comes out on Monday and see if they do any business before the window shuts. I think, yeah, I'm in agreement they need to. And we'll wait and see how it goes. But again, they're winning games. I'd love it if they'd won by more goals, but they're winning games so far, and you can't really complain. But there's a defender there, Harrison Burke, I've just got to pick out. I mean, he was local to me when he was at Chester before he joined this season. So I know how hard he works, and obviously in the National League North for a couple of seasons now. So to come up to League Two and perform as well as he's doing is really impressive to me. And I'm really excited to see how he does. He's a signing I would have loved at Tranmere. So Walsall fans, obviously I know you're watching this. Tell me how good has he performed well, because I do want to know, because I'm intrigued about him.
Okay, let's go to Tranmere, shall we? I know you've already sort of mentioned. Well, look, from one unbeaten start being ended to another, Tranmere Rovers have lost a game of football this time. They have lost two. I say this time, like you've lost a game this season. Tranmere Rovers have lost 2-1 at home to Notts County. Amari Patrick with the goal for Tranmere just before half-time. It's always him at the minute. But a couple of second-half goals from Matt Dennis and Kellen Gordon gives Martin Patterson's Magpies all 3 points at Prenton Park.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting game. I think it was a game that had zero quality or very little quality. It was one that was engulfed by emotion, and I think I needed the night off to really put it through my head and get over it. It was so competitive, so what I would call National League football, or proper football, and I like it. I like it when it's scrappy and when it's potential some dark arts in the game and how they can keep hold of a win, but also the dual aspect. I think there was handbags at a couple of times, and it was a really frustrating game when you're a fan of one of the teams, especially the team losing. But looking at it from a neutral point of view, it's an entertaining game, and it's something I do like to see. Both teams had their chances. I think neither really looked at scoring. I think it's glaring obvious that Tranmere need a striker. I'd hope Josh Davison would be the man, but I think we certainly need a striker. I think we've got one long-term injury. And we've got a couple of loans out and potentially one more loan out. We need strikers, and he's the only fit striker, or what I would call a striker, at the club. We need another one. There's not a want. That's a need at this moment in time. If we've sent two out on loan, and one of them scored and assisted in 5 minutes on his debut, so maybe that was a regret. But hey ho. But yeah, we need strikers. There's no denying that. Amari Patrick has to keep scoring. Amari Patrick scores again. What more can you say? He's done well, but at a point in time, we can't just rely on him. We've got to build up a team that can score goals. So we'll wait and see about that. But I'm impressed by Notts County. I think you need those sort of tactics to do well in this division. And they're not bad tactics. They're just how they play and how the game unfolded. It was a physical game and quite fun to watch, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it was an interesting one for me. I mean, your goal was another example of not just being run through again. It was far too easy. I feel like there's too many of those goals I've seen against them already this season, where you just run at them and they just collapse. So I do have concerns over their defence still. But then, going forward, they do obviously have something about them. I mean, Dennis is top scorer in the division with 5 already. He's 5 goals and 1 assist from 6 games. That you can't get too much better than that without just getting poached by someone from a higher division. But yeah, I mean, it was a good fight back from Notts. It was good to see them actually showing the right kind of mentality to get back into the game. But I do also think there was still another level to find with their performance in my eyes. But then I don't know, maybe that will come because now Jetta's back, isn't he? He came off the bench in that game. So maybe that will be the boost they need. I don't know, but then with Tranmere again, lots of shots, just not necessarily the quality of chances. I hate to bring XG into it, but you've had over double the amount of shots that Notts did. They had a way better XG, so the quality of their chances was, a lot better. And I think from your 15 shots, it was 2 on target, wasn't it? So certainly improvements. Certainly agree you need a striker. If you're relying on Josh Davison to score your goals, then respectfully, oh dear. That's all I'll say on that. But no, obviously a shame to throw that result away, but still some positives to take, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games. I mean, both sides set up in the same formation with the same tactics of a high press, so everyone's sort of equaled out, and it's about those individual battles. And I think it naturally just comes into that physical game when when you set up the same way, you're going to be connected with the player instantly. So it is how you win those individual battles, and too many of our players just couldn't get at it that day. I think, again, as I've said with other teams, it was just a bad day at the office for some of them. I think Whittaker had so many really good passes or ideas, but they were to no one. And it's just that final ball that we just can't find a striker. You look between the two sides, it's pretty much as simple as Notts County had Matt Dennis, the top scorer this season, on the pitch, and they had Jatta to bring off the bench, who was one of the top scorers last season and has interest from the league above and certainly has quality. We have Josh Davison and no one else. And I think he scored 3 goals last season. And there's the difference between the two sides. And we've got, 24 hours now to fix it. 26 hours or something like that to fix it. And we're going to have to.
Look, to put my sort of spin on it, I mean, Amari Patrick's goal, I mean, it wasn't outside the box, so really, should it count? It wasn't quite the banger that we've used to seeing him do.
It's not a normal his goal.
No, so I mean, it wouldn't have really mattered anyway. You lost the game. I mean, the winning goal for Notts County. I mean, Matt Dennis got the first goal. He played a big part in that goal, but also the Tranmere defender also played his part in that goal, taking out his own goalkeeper, in which Jordan had an easy tap in the end. It just felt like that goal felt very on brand for Tranmere at times.
Yeah,
it was take away from that, really.
Yeah, it was a bad pass to initiate possession to Notts County as well, and then just the calamity at the back. So yeah, complete agreement with you.
Yeah, but ultimately 3 points for Notts County from a losing position as well. Terrific for them. All eyes on them, of course. Tranmere, as we've mentioned. Yeah, total agreement. Then you need a striker. Not really much more to say on that. Let's have a look at our final game that we've picked. I'm not sure this will probably be a long one, really. We're really, I say, sort of starving for talking points in League Two this week. But we decided to pick out Bromley Harrogate. Bromley won 2-0. Of course, we've mentioned about two sides in the Dons and Tranmere Rovers, both losing their unbeaten starts to the season, whilst Bromley continues theirs with Nicky Kabamba and Omar Sawumni getting the goals to take down Harrogate. That's Swindon's second goal. I feel like he's scored in nearly every game. I'm quite surprised to see him score 2 goals. I think I predicted in the predictions the other week or the other day even that I just felt it could have been a draw. Like it would have been so typical Harrogate to go to their place and get a draw. But I think I also mentioned at the time I wouldn't have been surprised if Bromley won the game, and they have won that. And look, Bromley continue to impress us. Andy Woodman, I'm running out of words to describe Andy Woodman. I think he's top 3 managers in the league now. I think we're really starting to get to that point. The job he's done at Bromley, the job he continues to do at Bromley, to set him up in a way, I think certainly pound for pound, I think another podcast mentioned it, but certainly pound for pound, he's right up there in League Two. I really do believe that. And yeah, they just look very good at the minute. And look, 17 shots as well. 6 games, 12 points picked up. They're up into 3rd. I think there's only so much you can really describe that from them. But they they look good. They look good.
Yeah, I mean Bromley, it looked very strong. To be fair, I'll give Harrogate some credit as well. I actually think they looked pretty good in that game as well. I think certainly Duke McKenna had one or two chances that he maybe could have taken. But I think the difference set pieces, both goals set pieces again, and Bromley are just so good at them. I feel like I feel like every time I watch Bromley highlights, there's at least one that just happens to be a set piece. But yeah, no, that's their physicality, but also tactically they are very sound, and they had plenty of chances from open play as well. I know Cheek had one he probably would have expected to do a little bit better with, and that's another point. It's yet another game where they've won without having to rely on Cheek to score the goals for them. So they've become a really strong League Two side, and not just an average League Two side that has Michael Cheek. That they are a proper League Two side that I think could actually go places this season. I'm really starting to like Kieran's prediction of them finishing playoffs. They look really good.
It's starting to make me look a bit silly with that. Albeit, look, 6 games in, there's still a long way to go, but they've certainly started on the right foot.
I'm in complete agreement with you there, Joel, and nothing they're making me look silly as well. Certainly surprising. I did not see this coming from Bromley. Andy Woodman is a brilliant manager. Completely agree with that, but I didn't expect the start. I mean, still unbeaten. One of the 2 sides now left unbeaten. All 3 of us got knocked out at the weekend from that race. But yeah, Gillingham and Bromley didn't do that. But I mean, yeah, Bromley look a really good side, and I'm almost speechless by it because I'm so surprised. I think it goes against the narrative that teams who get promoted do well in the first season and struggle in the second. I think that's naturally the case for most sides, but they've mitigated that. And obviously, I mean, I know it's 6 games in, but 3rd place, still no losses. It's something to keep hold of. A fair amount, obviously, conceded less than they've played, which is still, a good thing to have. So it's exciting for them. And again, I am sort of speechless. I'm waffling because I don't know what else to say. It's just surprising and impressive.
Yeah, it totally is. There's not really much more to say. Obviously, Harrogate lost the game, back-to-back defeats for them now. But look, I don't think many sides will go to Bromley this season and pick up points. I really don't think that. They just look a really good side, a real strong unit, and they'll take some beating this year. And they've certainly looked like already. You can certainly see them kicking on. Absolutely. No, you mentioned the fact that second season, a few teams have struggled, and yes, some have. But there's always been a couple of sides as well that have kicked on, albeit some maybe have had more money than others. I look at Stockport in particular. Obviously, just lost at Wembley to Carlisle in the first season, of course, romped the league in their second. I think there's a couple of sides that have done similar to that. But even again, playoffs, if Bromley even make the playoffs, it's still an outstanding achievement for them. I think it was Andy Woodman that mentioned, I think he might have mentioned it on this pod actually, of course, friend of the channel, that I think he was sort of frustrated that, there were games in which they probably deserve more on, that they've dropped points from, I think, silly stuff, really. And it's sort of come back to haunt them in the end. And they finished like 13th, 14th or something like that in the end. But I don't think that was quite a fair reflection, actually, for where they were. Maybe it was, for those, but in terms of what they've done and what they continue to do, I mean, look, we praised Bromley last season. It's a terrific first season for them. As the first ever year as an EFL club, they're an ambitious club. They want to kick on, and they really started to show that. Them penning down Andy Woodman to a new deal is without a doubt the best bit of business they'll do this summer, without a doubt.
It's probably one of the best bits of business any club will do this summer. I think the squad they've got for him to be pulling these results out from their squad is incredible. It's not a bad squad, but I don't think it's top 2 in League Two.
Oh no, I agree. I'm in full agreements with that. But yeah, good win for them. There's not really much more to say with that. Let's have a quick run through of the other 6 results that took place. There was Friday night football, in which saw Salford drew 1-1 with Cheltenham. Of course, for Cheltenham, they've picked up their first point of the season. They're up and running on the board, very close to all three with Kadeem Harris scoring a late equaliser for Salford. It looked like Salford dominated the game in large spells for that. I think it was Miller that missed a sitter for them to go 2-0 up as well. I know he scored the first goal, but they really should have. He should have really done better with that. But it's a big couple of hours now for Cheltenham in terms of the transfer window. I expect them to be busy tomorrow. I think they need to be, really, to iron out some of the issues. Fleetwood went to Barrow and picked up a 1-0 win. Of course, Pete Wild's new side overcoming their old side. Yes, there was an early red card in the game, but Fleetwood have managed to pick up a very good 1-0 win in the end. I believe it was Ryan Graydon who scored. I think he's been off interest to quite a number of teams, especially I think in League One. I think he's been of interest for them, but they've gone to Barrow. Tough place to go, local-ish probably. I mean, like I said, I think I mentioned it. You think you're close to Barrow, and actually you're really nowhere near it. It's a real place to get to, but no, great win for them. 69% possession, 19 shots compared to Barrow's 8. It was always going to be an uphill struggle for Barrow after the early red card. Barnet drew 1-0 with Colchester. At the Hive, who would have thought that Jack Tucker is this goal-scoring sensation that we all know and love, especially Luke, you can see the shock in his face with that one. But, I mean, Barnet nicking a point in the end in the 90th minute. Daniela Killigney? I probably butchered his name, but he's picked up a draw for the Bees. Probably fair on reflection. I think Barnet had the better of it, more possession, more shots. Probably what Barnet deserved. Probably something from the game, and they've managed to find a way to pinch something from that. Cambridge beat Newport by 2-0 at the Abbey. Goals coming from Kellen Watts and James Brophy, of course, getting on the score sheet again. Of course, that's now 4 defeats in a row for Newport County, and if you saw Kieran's tweets yesterday, I think he certainly got huge concerns, and he certainly expects a big day tomorrow, with it being deadline day, as they're in desperate needs for signings. But a good win for Cambridge nonetheless. 2-0 home win, clean sheet. Can't really complain too much. Grimsby Town, from their heroics in the week, lost 1-0 at home to Bristol Rovers. Macaulay Southern Howells with the goal, and to be fair, it's one of those where you just got to sort of applaud it. It's a very good goal. He's hit it well. And it's right in the corner. It's beaten Pim. But I think, I don't really have much to say on the game, really. I thought, the game was lost in the first half, really. Especially the first half an hour until they scored. We were dead sluggish on the ball. I wouldn't say we were necessarily poor, but we were just dead sluggish. We were dead tired. Somewhat understandable from a lot going on. We were much improved second half, and we probably deserve something on the balance of play from that second half. Again, somewhat similar to MK, just felt like one of those days. It just wouldn't drop to us. Just couldn't find that final bit, which was bitterly frustrating. Bristol Rovers sort of played the dark arts pretty well. It was sort of frustrating to lose to them. I wanted revenge from Wembley 2015, but obviously that wasn't to be the case, and they managed the game pretty well, to be fair, and they picked up 3 points. But I can't say they were particularly impressive, really. They got their goal and they just sort of sat back for a lot of it. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, I guess, and it somewhat worked for them, and they picked up 3 points as a result. So frustrating for us, but good for them. That's now back-to-back wins in League Two. I know this sun is starting to bite me here in this. And of course, the last result we should probably mention as well. Shrewsbury drew 0-0 at home to Accrington Stanley. I don't think it's a result that does any side really any favours, really. Both have started pretty poorly, especially Shrewsbury. I know Accrington have played a game less. I can't see them much. I can't see either team really doing a great deal this season. I mean, Shrewsbury had 17 shots in the game compared to Accrington's 9, but I think they're the sort of games that you ought to be winning, really, if you want to have a chance of staying in this division. I'm saying it like I said, 6 games in, but certainly some concerns for both still. Of course, both sides yet to pick up a victory in any of their games. I know that Accrington have played a game less. Of course, so is Tranmere, as we've mentioned earlier. They've also played a game less, obviously, with that game being called off for Tranmere to play that cup game. But anything to take away from those games, just in general?
Well, mostly just concerned for a lot of sides, to be fair. I mean, as you mentioned, I don't know how Shrewsbury haven't won that game. I think that the Callum Stewart chance in particular annoyed me. He should have scored that, and they really should have killed that game off. For Accrington, it's also a concern because they didn't really look like they were in the game against one of the weaker sides in the division. So, yeah, I mean, they got a point, but maybe by luck more than judgment. Uh, Also annoyed at both Salford and Cheltenham because Cheltenham again weren't great, but then got themselves into a winning position and threw it away at the end. Meanwhile, Salford had tons of chances, like however many they could have possibly needed to put that game away. Uh, and well, it took them 90 plus minutes to score to actually go and score one. So for me, that's a bad point for them. Uh, Only other thing I'd mention is just that Fleetwood game. I don't think they were quite as ruthless as they should have been. I know they were away, and it was it's a decent result obviously to get the win, but you're playing 10 versus 11, and to be fair, they nearly threw it away as well because there was a chance towards the end of that game that looked like it could have found its way in. So I would have liked to see them take that game by the scruff of the neck a little bit more. But still, they got the result. That's the important thing. As long as they build on the performance, then it's not too bad. But other than that, no other comments.
Yeah, I mean the Salford's the big one. Obviously, they need to do better. 2 losses in the first 6. They need to improve. I think we all know that Salford should be up in about the playoffs, if not top 3, really. Or I'm sure that's where Salford fans would hope they'll be by the end of the season. So they need to do better, but I'm sure it'll come. It's one of those things, naturally, just building the side. It takes time. As I've said with MK and lots of other clubs, it does just take time when you bring those players in to gel, to just get that final pass, that final just rub of the green to get a shot in the net. It just takes time, and eventually that luck will swing your way. Didn't for Salford, but they managed a point, and that's something at least, but they need to do better. Obviously, Cheltenham, as you said, they'll be hoping for more in the next 24 hours with the takeover and everything. They need additions, and they need them quickly, so we'll wait and see. And I think Cheltenham have always been a team where you're going to have to judge them after Monday because, ultimately that's when the window ends, and that's when they should have a completed squad. And we'll wait and see what the team looks like at that point in time because we know they're waiting for the takeover and everything with that. Cambridge, Newport game is the other one. I mean, Cambridge dominated. Wasn't completely impressed, but still a solid point, 2 goals. You can't ask for more. Again, building momentum, obviously, after an uncomfortable season last year, getting relegated. We'll wait and see how they can improve on that and see if they can push up the table now. Newport, like you say, 24 hours again. What business can they do? They probably need more players in. We'll wait and see.
Can we just mention Salford's new striker very quick? Now, this is an interesting one. Nicholas Siri, 21-year-old Uruguayan striker, signs on loan from a team in Uruguay. He was on loan, I think, in the Belgian second division last season. And he's made the move to Salford City. Look, I'm all for these sorts of transfers, by the way. They're pretty cool. It's a big move for him. I'm surprised he even knew that there was a Salford. Well, in fact, no. Actually, no, I'm saying that. I'm doing him a bit of a disservice because I think even if you're not that familiar with League Two, I think you probably just got to take a look at the owners at Salford City. But no, I love those sort of transfers. I think they're great. It's certainly something different. But I just wanted to mention that. I know next to nothing about him. I saw he was on the bench the other day, and he came on by the looks of things. But look, we've reached the end of pretty much our League Two summary for this week. And if you want to click off now, by all means do it. Because I'm about to bore you for the events that happened on Wednesday night. I felt like it was appropriate to discuss this, other than the fact I just wanted to share it, really. Carabao Cup second round. Grimsby Town hosted Manchester United at Blundell Park. The game finished 2-2. The game went to penalties, and the Mariners overcame Ruben Amorim's Red Devils. I think I called him Bruno on the tweet, which was embarrassing. yeah, Grimsby Town overcame Manchester United 12-11 on penalties, and oh my God, where do you begin with that? Look, it was always going to be an uphill task. You say what you want about Manchester United, they're very much on the club, very much a club on. They've struggled last few years, and I think you could really see that. I don't think it takes a scientist to work that out, but look, I could really go in on the media here, and obviously the attention will be on Man United. It's a humiliating result for them, going to Grimsby Town and obviously losing in that manner. But what a night! I can't. I'm struggling to hard. I'm hard. That sounded really weird. Jesus. I'm struggling to put it all into words really how special of a night that was. And the thing is, it wasn't a case in which we sat back, we rode our luck, we hit them on the counter attack. It was 100% deserved, that result. And the thing about it as well, it could have been 3 or 4. And I think if it was 3 or 4, that game is done. I mean, that Cam Gardner goal, the one that was disallowed in the second half, criminal. That was criminal. Yeah. And if that was allowed, that's game over. They don't come back from that. If that game was at Old Trafford and they had VAR, that goal gets allowed. It's as simple as that. There was no. Maguire's intentionally tried to play that pass, but literally first half we was for 60 minutes of that game, especially the first half, we outplayed Manchester United. We outplayed them. And it was no fluke, that scoreline either. Charles Vernon took his goal really well. That build was incredible, by the way. The way Greeny won it back. The pass there from Garner to Burns. Burns has crossed to Vernon, touch, finish. Onana should do better. Not for the first time, we'll say that, because that second goal is a mess in which Onana will not want to look back on. But Ty Warren, what a story for him, by the way. Obviously being at Manchester United early in his career. Scoring his first goal for Grimsby Town against Manchester United. I mean, he did. Some storylines just write themselves, but look, they ended up bringing on their big guns. That's Bruno Fernandes came on, Brian Mbeumo, Mason Mount, Matthias de Ligt, and it's even a squad that that's not a poor Man United squad that they had either. The likes of Benjamin Sesko started. The likes of Matthias Cunha started. Harry Maguire was in defence. Kobe Mainoo, I know he's off. There's a lot of stuff going around him in regards to his Manchester United future. That's not a poor squad. And ultimately, I think whatever squad you put out there, you expect that Man United squad to go and beat a side like Grimsby Town. And look, I was in tears near the game at the end of the game. It was what I mean. The penalty shootout was draining enough, but I mean, not even Mbeumo's miss hitting the bar. The save from Cunha as well. I thought that was it. Cunha's going to score this. You expect him to, with a player of his quality, and then it was a really poor penalty when Pim saved it. I mean, look, I didn't get on the pitch because I was obviously sat in the upper stand, but I've never heard Blundell Park like that. Never. And I think you'll do very well to get anything like that again. I think there's been times in which we've been looking at it like the atmosphere at Blundell Park was flat. Yes, we probably did raise it because, it's Manchester United. Arguably, well, for me, the biggest club in the country and certainly top 3 in the world. So it was always probably going to happen. But look, it's a night that will live long in the memory. And of course, with that, Grimsby Town become the first side in history to beat Manchester United. I mean, look, it's also a great advertisement for League Two. And that's sort of why I'm sort of mentioning this as well. Look, it's one of those historic nights. It's not like, we've over the last few years we've had some great moments already since Jason Stockwood and Andrew Pettit took over as joint chairman of the club. I mean, look, the promotion out of the National League was special. The way we did that, beating Notts County with a 96-minute equaliser and a 119th minute goal, that was special. The 5-4 against Wrexham, that was just a different level of carnage. But again, we won it in the 119th minute. And even the game at the London Stadium, we beat Solihull Moors in the final. Sorry, Callum. Look, 112th minute goal to win that. I mean, it was mentally draining, but I wouldn't change that for the world. And then, the year after, going on that insane FA Cup run, reaching the quarterfinals, being the first 4th division side to beat sides, or being the first side, really, not necessarily League Two, but being the first side to beat 5 teams higher up in the footballing pyramid than we were. Again, that's a history that little bit of history that we proudly own, and now this. I mean, I think that trumps any of that. I really do. I think it's considered. You look at the name of Manchester United. Like I said, they've had their issues, and they continue to do. There's obviously a lot of discourse around them at the minute, but you don't top that. You do not top that, and it ended up being what proved to be the most special of nights, really. And I can somewhat half forgive the first half an hour of the game against Bristol Rovers yesterday, because it must have been mentally knackering for the players. Obviously physically knackering, but also mentally. You see all these interviews going around as well. Them asking for interviews and all that. But I think there was one comment as well. I can't remember who said it, but I know I'm going on a little bit, but I think a Man United streamer mentioned it, and George McEachran apparently said he could not believe how easy it was in midfield for them to play through. And I think there's your damning statement of Manchester United right there, and Ruben Amorim. But look, I mean, proud to say I've got the ticket right here, and of course the program that they gave out for free as well, which I thought was a really classy touch from the club. They didn't have to do that, but I mean, this all history now. And it'll be something that we'll remember for a long, long time. And I say that like with we're the only side that's beaten Manchester United in this call. Luke, don't start.
I mean, I was going to mention it, but I was actually going to mention it to also credit just how good of a result yours was. Because, yes, we beat them, 4-0 back in, 2015? But, there were a couple of academy lads in that side. Don't get me wrong, there still were some first-teamers, but it was a mix. Whereas the side you beat was just a straight upper first team. I mean, yes, it was rotated a little bit, but those were all first team players, and you thoroughly deserved it as well. And that's just what football's about, isn't it? It's moments like that. Like when something like that happens, there's no other feeling like it. You can't really explain it, and yeah, I mean, even just sitting there as a League Two fan, I was just so happy for you that you got that result, and yeah, I mean, credit to you guys for pulling it off. Like I said, it's almost irrelevant that you lost the next game because I think in the long term, pulling off a result like that, what that will do for your squad mentally, like I'd go as far as calling it now and say you're promoted. Like that the strength that is gonna give your side, like they know they can beat anyone now. They know they can beat anyone. They're not going to be bothered about having to face MK Dons when you've already beaten Man United this season. Like,
And I think
it's such a huge thing.
I think that's the security we need as well. I don't fear anyone. I really don't. The games we have played, I've not feared a single opponent. I think we've arguably been the best team in all those games, even against Manchester United, which is mad enough to say. But what this will do, obviously you can still half forgive yesterday, but what this will do going forward, not just for the sake on the pitch, off the pitch, we've had the eyes of the world of us. That'll be big going forward, maybe for potential investors and maybe just getting our name out there. Grimsby Town was put on the map that night, and it makes me so proud to see that.
Yeah, I mean, we lost 7-0 to Man United. If that's anything,
I forgot about that.
with Paul Jones and Harry Maguire goals, it was So you've done better than us. No, it's a brilliant night, and it's a night that's about the fans, and it's one of the reasons why we should never ever change things about these cup competitions, because this is what it brings. And I mean, everyone watching, you can hear Jordan talk and the enthusiasm and seeing all the Grimsby fans and everything around the world about Grimsby Town from that game. I mean, everyone watching, if you're not a Man United fan, of course, you're cheering on Grimsby, and to see them play Man United off the park, I mean, that was a convincing win. That's more convincing than any of the Tranmere games I've seen this season. And it should have been a convincing win in terms of they should have won 3-0 with obviously the goal that was offside, and whatever the linesman saw is what he saw. But I agree that with VAR, it certainly would have been overturned, and it would have been 3-0 and against one of, if not the biggest club in the world in terms of sales and all the rest of it, and fans and everything. They are one of the biggest clubs in the world, and you've beat them. which is just incredible. And like you say, it's the first team. It's a statement, and it shows how important those cup competitions are, and we need to protect them.
Absolutely that. And look, we'll end it in a minute, and I'll stop reminiscing in a minute. But yeah, it was almost a sense of you expected Manchester United to get back in the game. It was so frustrating. It was when Harry Maguire equalised for 2-2, 89th minute. You're thinking, oh god, here we go. There'll be 5 minutes added on, and you probably fully expected Man United to win it from there, and they missed a golden opportunity right at the end. And just a quick note, Benjamin Sesko, 75 million quid he cost, and he's the last outfield player to take a penalty. Like, what's that about? Like, come on. I'm not having that. If I'm a Man United fan, I'd be wanting to send it back to Germany for that. Genuinely. Taking the last outfield player to take a penalty against League Two Grimsby Town. It doesn't sit right with me, that. But look, it is what it is. It's a night in which the football club deserves, the fan base deserves, because we've had some difficult periods over the years, and see it all come together on that night, to hear Blundell Park as it was, how loud it was. You couldn't hear yourself think at times in that ground. It's certainly one of those games in which I'll be speaking to my nearly 1-year-old nephew in a few years' time, when hopefully I'm sort of persuading him to be a Town fan. I think my sister's already asked him if I could buy a kit for him for his birthday in a few weeks. And you know what? I'm happy to do that. More than happy to do that. And the fact that upcoming for the next generation, this is absolutely big. And we've made a few fans from that night. We've made a few quid, and ultimately we've put our names out there. And so proud for the effort. And yes, all right, yes, yesterday happened. I'm not particularly too fussed at the moment, because those players at that night they go down in history, and they deserve every accolade that's come their way and has come their way. They were terrific at the night, outstanding, every one of them to a man. And they're in the history books now. Right, let's end it there before I could go on, and I'll probably cry if I did. Happy tears. But let's end it there. Look, this was a great episode. I've really enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed the discussions, and I personally like the 6-game format. I shouldn't really be saying this on live, but you get to hear it anyway from my opinions. Of course, let us know what you think of that, and of course, thank you guys for listening as always, and thank you guys for your support as always. As I've mentioned, go and do all the usual stuff: subscribe, like, comment, download. We'll be back in the week, and we should probably mention as well, obviously, transfer deadline day tomorrow. And we'll be once again doing a live stream. I think myself and Kieran will be involved in there. From Dan from the non-league guys as part of the football deck will be on from, I think, 6:30 till 8, and I think the League One guys are doing it from 5. So make sure you tune into that. It'll be great to get as many guys as you want as possible, and get as many comments as possible. We're looking for have a bit of a good time. We're counting down. I've enjoyed doing those deadline day streams. They're great fun. So if you can, I don't know when this is going out, but if you're listening to it, before this goes out or when it's going on, we'd love to get you guys involved in the stream as much as possible. It'd be really appreciated. But we'll be back next week for the preview show for next week's games. This has been 4th Tier Fever. Thank you guys for tuning in as always, and until next time, we'll see you on the next one. Take care for now.